A black old woman couldn't pay her hospital bill because she forgot her cash. The cop thought she was poor and kicked her out. 5 minutes later, he regretted it. He thought she was just another broke, old woman wasting space. In 5 minutes, that same woman would make the entire emergency room stop and stare in, not for the reasons he expected. The waiting room of St. Clair Community Hospital smelled like overbrewed coffee and antiseptic. It was 9:43 a.m. on a Wednesday, the kind of day where nothing seemed urgent, but everything still buzzed with quiet tension. Officer Derek Milner leaned against the wall near the admissions desk, arms crossed over his uniformed chest. His face held that default sneer reserved for shoplifters and drug addicts. He had just been assigned this morning to help maintain order after a recent uptick in local ER fights. He hated hospital duty. Too many excuses. Too many whiners. That's when she shuffled in. Short, hunched, and barely balancing a battered purse in one hand and a folded cane in the other. The old black woman stepped through the glass, sliding doors as if the wind might carry her back out. Her silver-gray hair was tucked under a faded blue scarf. Her coat was clean, but clearly secondhand. She didn't look up when she approached the check-in counter. She simply laid her palm gently on the surface, as if asking permission to speak. "Ma'am," said the receptionist without looking up. I was here last week. They told me to come back to finish some tests. I think it was the blood work." Her voice was soft but firm. "Do you have your ID?" "Yes, baby. Right here." She handed it over. Officer Milner watched her with thinly veiled judgment. She looked like someone who might ask for a bus voucher, or worse, hang around until the nurses found a way to treat her for free. The receptionist typed for a moment. "Okay. It looks like there's a balance of $78 still outstanding from your last visit. We need that paid today before we proceed." The woman blinked. "Oh, I see. I thought Medicare. I'm sorry. We need it up front today." She fumbled in her purse. She pulled out some change, a $10 bill, a folded shopping list. "No wallet. Two must have left my money at home. I just came from church." I didn't realize her hands shook slightly. Derek pushed off the wall. "Ma'am, if you can't pay, you'll need to come back when you can. We can't have people just hanging around hoping to be seen." The receptionist glanced up, then quickly away. She didn't want trouble. The old woman looked at Derek, confused. "Sir, I wasn't asking for charity. I just forgot my cash. I have the money. I'm sure you do. But I've seen this before. Come in, pretend to need help, stall until someone forgets to check payment." He took a step closer. "Let's go. You can wait outside until you've got your things in order." "I'm 76, she said, voice now shaking with disbelief. "You want me to sit out in the heat until someone brings me my wallet? I want you to follow hospital policy." A man nearby looked up from his phone. A nurse at the far end of the room paused. The woman stared at Derek for a long beat, then turned around slowly, gripping her purse like it might vanish. He watched her exit, shuffle step by shuffle step. Derek returned to his post, proud of himself for not letting her play him. That's what they called it at the precinct when someone made you feel bad enough to bend the rules. Exactly 5 minutes later, the sliding doors opened again. But this time, it wasn't the old woman. It was the hospital director. Behind her strode a tall man in a sharply pressed suit with a badge clipped to his waist knot, a hospital badge. A federal one. And behind him, the mayor. Everyone turned. "Where is she?" the hospital director asked, scanning the room. The receptionist pointed weakly toward the front lot. The man in the suit was already halfway out the door. The mayor followed. "What the hell is going on?" Derek muttered. 30 seconds later, the doors opened again. The old woman walked back in, this time with a quiet dignity, surrounded by 3 people in authority who all looked like they had just swallowed nails. The suited man stopped in front of Derek. "Officer Milner, is it?" His tone was level, dangerous. "Yes, sir." "Did you remove this woman from the building?" "She couldn't pay her bill. I followed procedure." The man turned to the old woman. "Mrs. Eleanor Jacobs, is this the officer?" She nodded once, her eyes no longer confused or uncertain. They burned with something ancient. Not rage, not shame, just quiet power. The suited man turned back. "Do you have any idea who this woman is?" Derek's confidence faltered. "She didn't say." This woman, he interrupted, is a retired civil rights attorney. She marched in Selma. She defended freedom riders in court. She's received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She also happens to be the private pro bono legal advisor to the state health commissioner. Silence fell like an anvil. She came in today to complete blood work after donating her services for free to help fight medical discrimination in this very district. You kicked her out for being 10 minutes early and for getting cash. Derek swallowed. She's also my godmother, the man added. Then the mayor stepped forward. And she baptized my daughter. Derek said nothing. The hospital director looked like she might vomit. Mrs. Jacobs stepped closer. I forgive you, son, she said. But I hope you understand what you just revealed about yourself. He did, and it burned. They led Officer Milner aside. The hospital director, still red-faced. The mayor hovered nearby. Mrs. Jacobs remained standing, cane in hand, her presence steady, unyielding. The suited man, badge visible, cleared his throat. Officer Milner, I'm with federal oversight. We will review whether racial bias influenced your actions. For now, I'd suggest you step aside. Derek's legs felt like jelly. He looked at Mrs. Jacobs. She didn't flinch. Instead, her eyes held a quiet sorrow. He nodded. Yes, sir. He guided him out of the lobby. Whispers followed. Some good, some angry, some ashamed. Derek heard all. In the back office, the suited man sat Derek down. The director and mayor remained for context. Officer Milner, he began, I want to hear your side. But I also want you to understand the gravity. This is not just about policy violation. This is about racial profiling and public trust. Derek swallowed. I followed what I thought was procedure. Let's unpack that, the agent said. As Derek struggled, Mrs. Jacobs watched from the lobby bench. She whispered to the mayor's wife, who sat beside her. The hospital resumed service. Nurses glanced at her. The air had changed. Back in the interrogation room, Derek explained hurriedly. I thought she was stalling to get free treatment. She couldn't pay. I did what I believed I had to. The agent shook his head. You thought she was poor. You didn't ask why. You didn't try to help. You assumed. Derek's cheeks burned. I didn't think I was doing my job. Your job includes judgment tempered with humanity, the agent said, voice calm. Let me show you something. He pulled up a video timeline on a screen. It showed Derek and Mrs. Jacobs, the mayor, the long walk outside. See her walk? Calm, dignified, not panicked. And you treated her like a suspect. The word landed like a blow. Derek trembled. I didn't know. We all live with what we don't know, the agent said. Now you do. Meanwhile, the mayor convened a press conference. The lobby filled quickly. Reporters from every news network, local and national. The mayor introduced Mrs. Jacobs and the federal agent. Officer Milner was not invited. The mayor spoke firmly about justice and accountability, and the hospital director apologized for the misjudgment under his watch. When Mrs. Jacobs spoke, her voice was soft but clear. I have met many with badges who protected me. Today I met one who thought my life owed him something. Let's teach him better. The words rippled outward. Over the next week, news segments explored her career as pioneer of civil rights law. Editorials praised her composure. A petition grew online demanding disciplinary action for Derek and racial sensitivity training among all local officers. Derek sat in training rooms, federal classes, empathy workshops. He wrote essays on bias. He listened to testimonies from customers, hospital staff, even his own father, now retired policeman. He wept when he realized how his assumptions had hurt. He wrote Mrs. Jacobs a letter of apology, long and full. He asked not for forgiveness, only for guidance. One Thursday afternoon, 6 days after the incident, Mrs. Jacobs walked back into the hospital, cane tapping quietly. Derek spotted her and stepped forward. He bowed his head. Ma'am, She raised a hand. I read your letter. Derek froze. She continued. It was honest. Another long beat. Come, she said. Finish what we started. They walked together to the blood labs to complete her work. Nurses watched, compassionate. She settled into her chair. He stood respectfully by her bag. The phlebotomist gently guided Mrs. Jacobs' arm. Derek stood nearby, silent but present, no longer in uniform. She didn't look at him as the needle slid into her vein, but she didn't ask him to leave either. That was a start. When the procedure was finished, she thanked the nurse. Derek offered to walk her out. She gave a small nod. Outside, the day was bright and unusually quiet. Summer heat hovered, but neither of them complained. "Would you allow me to escort you home, ma'am?" Derek asked. She looked up at him, her brows raised. "Because you feel guilty?" "Yes," he said, "but also because I want to understand." She studied his face. "You can carry my bag." That small mercy surprised him. He took it gently, like it was sacred. They walked through a neighborhood where porch flags fluttered and kids rode bikes. People noticed them. The elderly black woman who had become a symbol and the young white officer who had become a lesson. They reached her stoop. She motioned to the bench. "Sit. You got 5 minutes." "Derek Saturday. Mrs. Jacobs, I didn't know who you were. But I should have treated you with the respect of someone who's lived longer than I've been alive." "You treated me like a problem," she replied, matter of fact. "Not a person, a nuisance. Something to process and remove. I've seen that look before. 50 years ago, I marched against it." He nodded slowly. "I can't undo what I did, but I want to learn from it. Not perform it. Learn." She tapped her cane on the step. "Then you'll need to stay uncomfortable for a while. Growth doesn't come cheap." He smiled faintly. "That's fair." They sat in silence for a minute. The birds chirped overhead. Someone watered a garden down the block. Mrs. Jacobs turned to him. "Do you know what happened the last time I was profiled?" Derek shook his head. She leaned back, eyes narrowing at the sky. "I was 27, pulled over on my way to court. The officer asked if I'd stolen the car. It was a Ford Pinto, hardly luxury. I showed him my license, the title. He said none of it mattered. What happened? He made me sit on the curb for 45 minutes while people stared. Then he left. No ticket, no apology, just humiliation." Derek swallowed. "I'm sorry. I was that officer in different clothes." "Yes," she said simply. "And yet here you are." A breeze passed between them. Derek gathered courage. "Would you speak to the department? At the academy? Tell your story?" She looked at him as if measuring the weight of his words. "Only if you're there too. To tell yours." He blinked. "Me? Yes. Let them see the mistake. And the man who faced it." Derek nodded. "I'll do it." They stood. She patted his arm. "Then maybe you'll become more than your badge." 2 weeks later, the City Police Academy auditorium filled with recruits. On stage stood a single chair and a small table with water. The projector displayed the words, 2 stories. 1 system. A conversation. Mrs. Jacobs stepped out first. She walked slowly but with purpose. The room hushed. She began to speak. She told them about growing up in Montgomery, marching in Selma, getting her law degree at Howard, about courtrooms that turned hostile when she entered, about hospitals that asked for payment before care, about the day she came in for a routine test and was mistaken for a burden. Then Derek walked out. Recruits exchanged glances. He stood beside her, no longer an officer in the room, just a man facing his truth. He spoke about assumptions, fear, and shame. He admitted his mistakes publicly. He did not deflect. The auditorium was quiet for long moments after. Then, applause not thunderous, but sincere. A spark, maybe even a shift. Word their talk spread. Other cities called. Universities. Justice panels. They traveled together for some of them. Not always, but enough. Derek became a community liaison. Not perfect, but present. Mrs. Jacobs kept her routine. Her garden, her reading group, Sunday service. But occasionally, she'd receive a letter from a young recruit who heard her speak. And she always replied. One day, years later, Derek received a small box in the mail. Inside, a single polished stone, smooth and black. A note in Mrs. Jacobs' crisp handwriting read, "You carried my bag when it was heavy. Now carry this. Let it remind you. Burdens don't vanish. They pass forward until someone decides to carry them right." When Mrs. Jacobs passed quietly in her sleep at 87, the city flew its flags at half-staff. A mural was painted on the hospital's eastern wall. Her portrait, eyes forward, the words beneath. "Respect is the rent we pay for peace." At the unveiling, Officer Derek Milner now retired, stood back in the crowd. He wasn't in the photo. He didn't need to be. She had said enough for both of them.